Welcome to the game. I'm Russ Cohen. We've got Mike Augello. Mike, how are you?
Russ Cohen, my man.
Well,
Just kidding.
right. I know. I tried to get Nico. Not sure. We're having trouble efforting him. Maybe it's a technical glitch, but we'll get him on next show to talk about what happened during the trading deadline. But let's chat about the trading deadline. Mm-hmm. The Mets made one move already. I really kind of hope that the Mets would be in on Trevor Story because he'd be a good fill-in at shortstop because Lindor's out another 3 to 6 weeks, and then he could move over to third and get J.D. Davis out of the field because he's just not good in the field. But the Yankees are in on Story, and I would imagine other teams too.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's not only an excellent defensive shortstop, but has power, and he's not having a good year this year. I think he's hitting in the 240s, but, a change of – probably I would assume that the fact that he's in his walk year maybe has affected him a little bit. But, I mean, whoever gets him, it's a good get, and let's just say this. I'm skeptical about the reports that the Yankees are in because after losing 3 of 4, 2 games in heartbreaking and in incompetent fashion against the Red Sox, I think they're 4.5 games behind the second wildcard team. They have to make a move if they want to get back into it, but if they do that, they're sacrificing their almighty luxury tax, which they've been trying to stay under all year. So I'm wondering whether there is going to be like some give in another area. That's why I mentioned a guy like Clint Frazier or some other player who's making money that allows him to stay under the cap. I don't even know what Story.
Another area like they would charge $15 for sunscreen now for the rest of the summer instead of like 10.
No, how about $6 for water instead of 5?
Okay. All right. Well, that would make up for it. So the Mets did pick up Rich Hill, and in typical Luis Rojas fashion, Hill was terrific after 5, and then he kept him in there. And, of course, at 5 2/3, he started to get wrapped. And it's like, listen, you can't do that with these guys. He's 41 years old. You can't stretch him. This is the problem Rojas makes. He's been making all year. He lets the pitcher hit, and then he tries to keep him in an extra inning. It's like, stop doing that.
So has this been a symptom of him all year?
Yeah, because he overuses the bullpen, so then they try and save the bullpen, and as a result, do that. And so I'm hoping they realize, hey, just let him go pitch 5 next game. He'll be really good at it. Actually, his curveball was working well, and he's surprisingly good for a 41-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, the rule generally now is twice through the batting order, and then when you get the third time, then the guy is usually out, unless it's somebody who, has a wide array of pitches and he can maybe stretch a little bit. But I mean, it's weird because the on the other side of New York, in the Bronx, the problem is, they had Domingo Germán pitching a no-hitter through 7.
Yeah.
He gives up 1 hit. I don't know what the pitch count was, but it was under 100. But he normally pitches about 80 to 90 pitches. He gives up 1 hit, they pull him, and Jonathan Loaizaga, who just came off the COVID list, gives up 4 runs, and they lose 4-3. I mean, it's just that, the Yankee bullpen was their strength earlier in the season.
And I think, with Loaizaga coming off of COVID, they should have put him in a less strenuous position to start because he's not going to be the same right out of the gate.
Well, I mean, they were up more than 2 runs, so they figured it was safe to do it. Plus, they've overworked all their other guys. I mean, if I see Lucas Litke's face again, I think I'll throw up because the guy is a gas can of the high. He's sort of the Bob Stanley of the Yankees. He's a lefty Bob Stanley. I get that look. He's got that look on his face that he's just ready to give up a double.
Well, speaking of gas cans, the Phillies are trying to acquire Tyler Anderson, who did beat the Mets recently. I get it. But a couple of years ago, he led the league in home runs. But as a pitcher, that's bad. He gave up 30. This year, he's given up 16 and 18 games. And I look up and it says, Phillies working through medical hurdles and proposed trade. Now, Dave Dombrowski, the Phillies GM, came out and said, yes, we can go over the luxury tax. We're looking to do it, whatever. And the first guy he tries to get is only making $2.5 million. they still had like $5 million, so they still aren't over the luxury
Right.
threshold. And this is the biggest shell game in baseball, Mike, with these GMs saying that they might do it and never do it.
Well, and it's coincidental that this happened with the Yankees about a month ago. Not that everything revolves around the Yankees, but Hal Steinbrenner came out when they were slumping and said, "Oh, if it's necessary and we think we have an opportunity, we'll go over the luxury tax." Well, maybe you should have thought about that when you went out and signed Corey Kluber, who hadn't pitched in 2 years, and Jameson Taillon, who hadn't pitched mostly in 2 years, instead of going out and signing starters that I think were at a higher level. I mean, they did everything to stay under the luxury tax, and now when everything is in trouble, now they're willing to do it, but they should have done it from the very beginning. And the Phillies are in the same boat. I mean, I don't think they have a good center fielder. They have a platoon. The guy was a Jankowski. He could be the most incompetent player I've ever seen in baseball. A game against the Yankees, he was bunting with
a surfer dude. Come on.
Yeah. Well, okay, man. The waves are bitching. But there are some big holes on the Phillies that need to be filled, and usually Dombrowski is a now GM and he strips the minor leagues.
Yeah.
He's probably going to end up doing that with the Phillies because that's his MO.
Yeah, that is his MO. Oddly enough, this is a year where the Mariners are looking to make some moves. John Morosi, now that he's done playing around with hockey, is back doing baseball and says they're working on multiple additions. And that's interesting. I mean, they're 55-46. I'm sure Mariners fans would love them to at least make it close. And they're in the thick of it. I mean, the A's are trying to make deals too. I know that. Who did I see the A's? Oh, Chris Bryant, I think the A's are trying to get now, along with, 10 other teams.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's funny because you see right now the contending teams really battling each other to get some of these impact players. I mean, Adam Frazier gets traded to the Padres. I think that's a pretty good get for them.
Yeah, considering he's the best hitter in baseball, it is.
Yeah, I mean, they were loaded with prospects. So unless they were given him like they were given the Japanese pitcher that they have from the Cubs.
Yu Darvish.
They were given Darvish.
Yeah.
They were given a couple other players in trades this year simply because they were willing to pay them. So in this instance, I didn't see the prospects that went the other way. But unless they're top echelon for the Padres, then that's a great deal. It's a great deal anyway because he's a really good player.
Now here's a bad tweet from John Morosi. At least 7 contenders are active in the starting pitching market. Really? That's like everybody.
Right.
That's
like saying at 6:30 a.m. the sun will rise in the east. Thank you for that.
I did hear on Phillies radio that there's interest in Rafael Montero, who's closing, and that one is an interesting one for me because obviously he was on the Mets not that long ago. He's 30 years old. Again, this just seems like, we'll get this guy because he's got 7 saves, so he may be better than what we have. I mean, he's got a 7 ERA, Mike. Like, it's just the Phillies are like in this. They're at least 3.5 out, although they're getting blown out currently. But
yeah, why aren't they in on Kimbrel? Because Kimbrel,
right? That's what I wrote for Full Press. I'm like, if you really want to be in this race, you will go get Kimbrel. Exactly.
Yeah, and now you just mentioned the Mariners and how the Mariners are in the race. They're in the race for the wild card.
Yeah.
But they trade one of their pitchers, Graveman, to the Astros, to the team that's first place in their division. That the team that they're six games behind. That makes no sense. See, that goes counter whether they're actually contending, unless they're clearing salary, but Graveman's not making big money, so that's a deal I don't get.
Yeah. I see there's a lot of websites that are using a picture of Brian Cashman, and I have to think if the Yankees don't make the playoffs and Cashman doesn't make a big move here, I kind of wonder if his job is finally in jeopardy.
The mix and the dynamic there are really interesting. I mean, a lot of people. I know there are Aaron Boone defenders and there are Aaron Boone critics, and the people who are defenders basically say that he is subject to the analytics group that the Yankees have in terms of their lineup, in terms of how long pitchers stay in. It's sort of like he's a push button manager, and if I was Boone, I would not want that job, but that's apparently how he got the job, so he's sort of stuck with it. But this is all under the auspices of Cashman, and KO over the years he's been I think one of the better GMs in baseball, but you have to say he has $200 million to play with every year, and this team hasn't won a World Series since 2009. So, I understand the critics out there. I just know that the Steinbrenner family almost consider him a member of the family. So if this is the year that they...
Although if this were George wouldn't care if you're a member of the family. He'll fire your ass.
Right, but Hal is not George.
No.
And Hank was not George. Hal is more... He's more analytical. He's more business-like. I think if the cries get loud enough, then Cashman might be in trouble. I still think that, injuries and, now COVID with the 6 players being out.
They're sold out, Mike, of like Jeter 3000 balls. Like, what are they going to market?
How about Judge 52 home run bats?
Okay. All right.
I'm sure they have them stockpiled somewhere.
Maybe. I mean, it's a weird dynamic. By the way, when you were talking about gas cans, once again, Matt Moore is on the mound for the Phillies. And if you remember, we had a conversation on the Buzzcast when Anthony was on before the show started at the beginning of the year, and I said, this guy's horrible. And he said, yeah, he's not great, whatever. In 3 2/3, he's given up 7 hits, 6 runs, 2 homers. He's got a 6.46 ERA, a 1.5 WHIP, probably a little higher now, and he's still pitching for them.
Is he in contention for the Cy Young with those stats?
I mean, he's not in contention for anything, but they're keeping him in the game, and he's still pitching for them.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. I mean, there are some pitchers this year that have stat lines that are so bad that I don't know how they're still in the majors, but maybe those organizations just don't have any arms that they think are better. So, let me bring up this name because I've heard him bandied about in trade talk, and that's Joey Gallo. And of course, that's the Rangers are dead last in their division.
I wrote about him a couple of weeks ago for Full Press.
Yeah, and I'll probably write about him before the deadline because I'll do so, but okay, he's a center fielder and he's hitting .222. Now, in normal circumstances, that would make him, a decent ad, but not somebody that everybody's going nuts for. Of course, the stat line there is 24 home runs and a 380 on base. So he's one of these home run, strikeout, walk, or nothing guys. And I heard him attached to the Yankees, and I'm like, that's the last thing that team needs is, the only thing that he would provide them is that he's a lefty bat.
Right.
Yeah, he's a lefty bat. What's that?
What the hell are you pressing?
No, I was just looking up Gallo's stats, and the wonderful ESPN website showed a picture, a preview of Turner and Hooch. So we got a,
Are they making that? Is that what you're telling me?
What's that?
Are they doing a remake of Turner and Hooch? Yeah,
there's a series, I think, of Turner and Hooch. They've run out of ideas, Russ. Come on.
Wow. I mean, that was Tom Hanks. How in the world can you improve on that?
It's not improved. But see, this is the thing.
Are they going to get a better dog actor? Is that how they make up for it?
Baseball and Hollywood are synonymous in this sense. Hollywood has lost all originality. There are very few movies that are like, wow, that's great. Usually it's a ripoff on some other movie, or it's a sequel of another movie, or it's a remake of another movie. Baseball is like that. Is like everybody is cookie cutter. Everybody, things that teams would do back in the day that made baseball good and exciting. Now it's just, okay, swing for the fences, home run, or strikeout, or, there's no originality in the game. There very few games have been exciting that I've watched this year, probably because I'm watching to see the Yankees win, and of course they're losing more than they normally do. But baseball is just not great. It's really taken a step back.
It has. There's no question about that. Great way to promote the show, though, Mike. Thanks. So it was reported, and I guess it happened either during the game or, exits game. So Trey Turner is out of the game because he tested positive for COVID. And I wrote about this for Full Press just this week, that if you're a fan, do you want to trade for a guy that maybe hasn't been vaccinated and could get COVID? And now somebody who the Nationals were thinking about trading, because I think his contract is up after this season, or he has one more year left, Trey Turner, a great shortstop, might not be able to trade him now because he's got COVID.
Well, it's at least going to keep his availability in question for a couple weeks. And, right now,
I can't trade for a guy who tests positive for COVID and he's out for at least 2 weeks, because what if he tests positive again?
Well, I mean, testing positive again, after you've had it is extremely unlikely. But the whole point is, what player are you getting after those 2 weeks? I just said about Loaizaga. He was not, he was lights out for most of the season for the Yankees, and then he comes back and he's a gas can in that eighth inning that he gave up all those runs in the loss to the Red Sox. What Trey Turner are you getting after those 2 weeks? Are you getting a weakened guy who is not going to be able to hit? That's a genuine concern, because with some players, they just bounce back and they're right back like nothing happened. Other players, they may react differently, and that's a question that you probably don't want to have when you're trading for a player before the deadline.
Yeah. All right.
Do you want to bring up Max Scherzer, by the way?
Yeah, let's bring up good old Max Scherzer, who apparently doesn't want to pitch for the Mets. And did he say that about the Yankees too?
I don't think so, but I don't think the Yankees are trying to get him.
No, I thought there was something there with that. But yeah, hold on. This is Max Scherzer, who, when he's right, he's really good, but he's getting older and he's coming up with injuries. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure a West Coast team is going to want him. He still throws hard, but he's another guy that you got to hope you could even keep him down the stretch, keep him healthy.
That's all the Yankees or the Mets need, is an injured veteran pitcher. Like, DeGrom, and DeGrom is fantastic.
Carrasco.
Yeah, right. Carrasco, Syndergaard.
Carrasco, here's an update. Carrasco hasn't thrown a pitch for the Mets in a major league game. He's been pitching 3 innings at a time in the minors. He may pitch Saturday for the Mets, even though he hasn't been throwing over 45 pitches. So, what is he going to do? He's going to come up and pitch 4 innings? This is a guy, when the Mets made the trade and got Lindor and him, everybody's like, oh my God, the Mets stole it. They got Carrasco. And I was like, hold on there. This guy hasn't really pitched in the last 2 years. Yeah, but he had cancer. Everybody was making all these excuses. End of the day, we're almost in August, Mike. He hasn't pitched an inning yet.
Yeah, I would love to be Carlos Carrasco at this moment. Not pitch an inning and earn, I think, $12 million? I'd take that.
That's a hell of a deal.
Yeah, but I mean, we know that, pitchers especially are more finicky than ever, more, China dolls than ever. And I mean, I think they brought, he was part of the Lindor deal. Probably part of the cost that they had to take him on.
Yeah.
And now it's basically, I mean, okay, Steve Cohen has got money to burn, but still, I don't think he wanted to take on a pitcher who was making, I think it was 12 or something close to that, who doesn't provide him anything. At best, he was going to be an innings eater. And now his lack of availability has really stretched the Mets pitching staff to a point where they're starting guys like Jared Eichhoff, who probably, was a fire starter when he was at the Phillies. Yeah, he hasn't gotten much better with the Mets.
No, and actually, so Carrasco is making $11.75 a year
It's close. Wow.
And he had a 4-year deal. I don't know what year he signed it in, but I think he has one more year left.
I think you're right.
I mean, yeah, right now he's just, he's collecting a check. He's not really helping them. So the Mets are losing 10-1. The games that the Mets either have a starter or they throw like Jared Eichhoff in, who, hey, they had him. He didn't pitch well. He decided he wanted to be a free agent. They declared his free agency for him. Nobody wanted him. So then they took him back. And now he's getting this, he's getting beat again.
Yeah, no, it's bizarre. Just looking at the wild card races right now. Here is the weirdest stat. The Toronto Blue Jays are 49-47, 2 games over 500, and they have a run differential of plus 85. Which means, when they're winning 20-2.
Or their pitching's bad. Yeah, it's one or the other.
Right. So, I mean, and I know
they're winning like 7 games too.
Yeah, they've had a few blowouts where they destroyed a team like Texas. But right now, the wild card standings, Tampa Bay has got the first wild card in the American League. Oakland has the second. The Mariners are a game behind them, and the Yankees are 3.5 behind them. So the Yankees are within range, but this is a team that was supposed to be the best team in the American League, and they're far from it. They are such a flawed team that they, even by adding Trevor Story, who, by the way, is another right-handed bat.
Yeah.
They have no lefties in their line. They have to play Rougned Odor because they have no lefties in their lineup.
Yeah, that's crazy. This is why Cashman's job could be in trouble, because it really was a poorly constructed. Mike, you there?
Yeah, I lost you for a second.
Okay, so it's a poorly constructed team, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, okay. Apparently they were never in on Bryce Harper, and they didn't want Machado. Machado's a righty, but Bryce Harper is a lefty who is tailor-made for Yankee Stadium's short porch. But they didn't want to spend the $30 million, so they thought they were getting a bargain by trading with Miami for Stanton. And the first few years, I think that I think it was Starlin Castro, who they sent back, was making like $10 million. So it was really like he was making he was making 20 instead of 30. But now you've got Stanton on the books for, I think, another 7 years. And the guy has not played 1 inning in the field this year. And by the way, he's going to do that when they go to Miami because there's no DH and he has to play in front of his old team and old crowd.
Right.
And watch, he'll pull a hammy or a quad and he'll be out for 6 weeks after that.
Yeah. So the Twins traded Nelson Cruz to Tampa, and I just wonder, at 41, I mean, he has 19 homers, but I don't know. He could just die literally like on the vine at any time. Like, I know the crazy thing is he has 19 homers in 85 games, and last year he had 21 in 88. Now, in 2020, he only had 16 homers in 53 games. That's still pretty good pace. And then he had 41, and he was in the 40s. So he's still hitting homers, still at a pretty good pace. Right now, he's only hitting 167, but he has 2 homers and 2 RBIs for Tampa. Is this a good pickup?
Well, apparently it was the hefty cost that Tampa paid to Minnesota for him. So, I mean, Tampa's in win now mode. They're always, they did lose their best pitcher, Glasnow, earlier.
Yeah.
But they're still in it. They're at 60-40 right now, so 20 games over 500. I mean, you have to, if you have a hole in your lineup, you have to fill it, and they got some power and some veteran savvy in Cruz, so that's not a bad move. I mean, we'll find out 2 or 3 years down the road whether the guys they gave up in the trade that end up pitching or playing for the Twins. But yeah, I mean, it's a now move, and that there's nothing wrong with that when you're winning.
It's crazy though, because like you just said, how many games are over 500, and the Mets are 8 games over 500.
And yeah, I mean, right. I mean, but it's the question of the strength in each division. I mean, the division standings right now are just wild. I mean, I'm just looking at it right now. Here you go. I mean, the Red Sox are see, this is the reason why Tampa did it. They're only a game and a half behind the Red Sox. I'm waiting for the Red Sox bubble to burst. I saw them kick the Yankees' butts. 7 games over the last week. The Yankees won 2 or 3 at the stadium, then lose 3 or 4 to the Red Sox, and they've got some really good players. J.D. Martinez is back to being J.D. Martinez, and Devers and Bogarts, but they're not the team they were a few years ago, and they're still winning at a ridiculous pace. And their pitching staff is not great. So I don't know how they're doing it, but, they're 62-39. And the White Sox, I have to say, we ripped La Russa, but La Russa is doing a pretty damn good job. This team's 59. Yeah. They lost Jimenez in spring trading. He's coming back. They lost Madrigal, their second baseman, with an Achilles injury. I think he's supposed to come back in August. They've really been patchwork, but they've been winning. And
he's done a good job. I can't kill him for that.
And the Astros make me sick. Really.
I get that. I think right now it's the Mets remind me of the 73 Mets. The 73 Mets had worst record of any team to win a division ever, like 82-79, and yet they still made it to the World Series and lost in 7 to the Athletics. And trust me, the A's were stacked. Like that 73 A's team was amazing, with Bando and Tennis and everybody. But the interesting thing is, they had Seaver, Matlack, Kuzman, George Stone. If DeGrom comes back healthy, and you have DeGrom and Stroman, and somehow Syndergaard comes back, and then, we're talking about one other pitcher, whether it's Taijuan Walker, who does well, or somebody else.
Probably Hill.
Yeah, maybe Hill. Maybe Hill plays the part of George Stone, and maybe Walker does, refine himself. If they do that, would that be enough in today's era with that kind of pitching to shut down most other teams' hitting that's going to be better than theirs?
Well, who's to say it's not possible? I mean, we've seen, teams in other sports like the Montreal Canadiens, if everything falls into place and they go through and get to the Stanley Cup final. In baseball, it's very possible. If you get pitching at the right time, if you get timely hitting, it works. And if DeGrom comes back and is dominant as he has been this year, then you've basically got almost a guaranteed win, one guaranteed win, maybe 2 in a 7-game series. If he pitches the way he is, because it's been lights out. I mean, what is his ERA still under 1? I mean, it's sickening. But he has to be right. But then, I think you have enough in the rotation. Maybe I'm still a little skeptical about their bullpen, but Lugo is back. So
Lugo Diaz has been better lately. He only gave up the 1 walk-off grand slam. Hopefully that's it for the year. He's been pretty good. I mean, there's enough there where Lugo and or May could close in an emergency.
Right. Yeah, and again, I don't know if you have to worry about anybody in their division. I mean, Washington. I mean, maybe Atlanta's the team that you worry about.
Yeah. You know what? Brom's over a 1 now. He's a 1.08.
Okay. Oh, he's slipping. Yeah, and Atlanta. They lost Acuna for the year, but they're not cashing it in. They've made some additions over the last week or so that could help them. So I mean, they're not out of it. They're 49-51, and they're only 5 games out of first place.
Yeah, I also wanted to mention it's true they're still in it. DeGrom is at 14.3 strikeouts per 9 innings.
Jesus. Yeah, I mean, I wonder who's going to win the Cy Young this year.
Walks are 1.1 per 9 innings. He can only stay healthy. That's it.
Yeah, that's that. Now I'll tell you the surprise of the year has to be the San Francisco Giants.
But it's not. They were good last year. Why is this a surprise?
Because they're better than the Dodgers right now with a lineup that is not awe-inspiring. I mean, you know what it is?
This bothers Phillies fans because they dismissed him here like he was a boob, and he's been great with the Giants.
Yeah, no, I mean it's true, but I mean, Posey is back to being Posey. He's had a great year. Longoria is hitting 280. Brandon Crawford's got 18 home runs. I mean,
I don't know how that happened. I dropped him in all my fantasy leagues, and then all of a sudden he did something.
Right, but it's more than that. It's the pitching. I mean, Kevin Gausman is 9-4. Anthony DeScafini is 10-4. It's like, I mean, who the hell is that? I mean, if somebody is a baseball lifer probably would know it. But I mean, and I, believe me, I scour rosters for players for fantasy baseball and Stratomatic baseball, so I know the major leagues. I'm sorry, I don't know who the hell. I didn't hear of Anthony DeScafini until this year.
No, I knew him. I had him last year in fantasy. Otherwise, I wouldn't know. But it just went out of my head. But I think Kapler's 91-68 there. He was 29-31 last year. But they were in it all year until the end, and then they dropped out. 91-68. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I mean, Jake McGee has 20 saves. I mean, yeah. It's just. It's unbelievable. So yeah, I mean they're a Cinderella story, and I mean right now they're a game ahead of the Dodgers, and I think
the only thing that could derail them is another earthquake in the World Series.
Oh Jesus! Well,
like acting like it didn't happen, like we saw it.
No, I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just.
Do you remember though on TV when it started to happen and you saw the shaking?
Yes.
In the booth, that was crazy. And when we saw worse things with the bridges. I'm not making light of it, but I just remember that was the first thing we saw, and it was crazy.
And the players were all out on the field and wondering what the hell was going on. And like they were in the safest part of the place because they were in the middle of the field with nothing around. But the people in the stands who felt the stands swaying back and forth.
Yeah, that was.
They were a little bit nervous.
They were nervous. All right, that's it. That's it for the game. We'll find Nico. We'll bring him back for the post-trade deadline. His curse on the Mets still not working, and we'll catch everybody next time.
My man.